All right, welcome everybody to our architectural design session for the virtual career fair. I'm very excited to welcome three industry experts today. We have Art and Alicia from Halo Architecture, and we have Carrie joining us as well. Carrie, what is the name of your firm?
It's Envision.
Envision. Okay,
Yep.
That's what I thought, but innovation was in my brain, and so
We'll
didn't.
Take that too. That's
okay.
All right. Yeah.
That's also a great word, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. So they're going to talk to us a little bit today about the different opportunities in the field, their experiences, and we can go ahead and just kind of get started. Carrie, do you want to kick us off and talk a little bit about your day-to-day, your firm, and architecture as a whole?
You bet. So first of all, thank you all for joining us this morning. It's always a pleasure talking to students about our profession. I tell people, and I'm sure Alicia and Art feel the same way, I get to go to a job I love every day. And it's a new challenge every day. And it's one of the best things about being in the design field. You have regular projects you're working on, but there's just always something new you're doing on them every day. So you don't come in and do the same thing day in and day out. So for me, I have been an architect. I am a registered architect in the state of Iowa, and I've been at this for just about 22 years now. I graduated from Iowa State in 1998, grew up in Iowa and went to school at Iowa State in the program there. But I work now for Envision Architecture, and I've been here for almost 11 years. And while I am a registered architect, we have a lot of different people that work here and from different fields and backgrounds and things like that. So we are a two-studio firm. We have an office here and one in Waterloo, and we have about 50 to 60 people depending on the time of year. And if we have summer interns in, I think we're right around 60 people right now, split pretty evenly between our two offices. And that includes people, our staff includes architects, it includes interior designers. We have a graphic designer on staff, we have a marketing director, we have project administrators. So there's a lot of different parts and pieces that even though we're called Envision Architecture and Planning, we have a lot of different components that help us get our work completed. And so as you guys are considering your career fields, I think it's just really important to think about, if you're interested in design, to understand that there's a lot of different ways to achieve that and a lot of different opportunities to be part of that. So my day to day, I serve as a principal here and also as an architect. So part of my day is just working and leading teams. I work on anywhere from like 5 to 8 projects typically at a time. And I'm doing a lot of oversight, checking in with teams, making sure that we're staying on schedule and on budget for the work we need to complete. I do a lot of correspondence with owner groups to make sure that we're meeting their needs for sure. That's one of my primary roles. But then also I spend a good chunk of my time thinking about how to make Envision a better place to work, how to provide better services. I work with our marketing team here on the message we're sending outboard. So I have a lot of different things that fall under my bucket, and that's part of the every day is a little bit different, a lot of different roles and hats that I fill here. But it's one of the things I love most about my job. So so in a given day, a lot of times I'll be in owner meetings, reviewing drawings and making sure that, we're meeting their needs in a particular project, going through space by space and asking, is this what you needed? Did we hear you correctly? Asking a lot of questions of them and making sure it's getting it into a model. We're doing that a lot 3-dimensionally now. And then sharing out kind of what that looks like with them and making sure that's meeting their expectations. And then otherwise, it's just a lot of internal things here that I work on. So I know that was really quick, but if there are specific questions, I'm used to really interactive conversations, so please use the chat box and I'd be happy to answer anything specifically. I guess I did want to touch on, I get asked a lot when I do these things about kind of work-life balance. I am a mom, I have 3 kids, and so that is something that is definitely achievable. If you have specific questions about that, I'd be happy to talk about that further. So
thank you. Alicia and Art, take it away.
Yeah, Thank you very much. And Carrie, it's nice to see you. We
Yeah.
typically see you in passing at interviews where we're
Yep.
peers with one another.
Yep.
But we're also, the architectural industry in Iowa, we're a very tight-knit group, so we all kind of know each other. I think I saw, was that Hoang Tran that walks behind you
It
there?
was. Yep. He sits right next to me. So,
A student of mine when I was a TA in grad school. He was one of my best students, so say hi to Hoang for me. He's
I will do that.
a great guy.
Yes.
And I just echo everything you said, Carrie, that, we get to come to work every day and have fun doing projects that we love. And I'll just add to it that, with projects taking, months and even years to complete, and they're always in different phases. There's early design and then later design, bidding the project out, construction, post-occupancy evaluation. That even though a project is multiple years long, there's something new every day with the project, and every building is a prototype, right? So it's never been done the same way before ever. Even if you're using identical plans, different sites are going to be different. So every project is new. You learn something new with every project. Like Envision, we have multiple disciplines under our one roof here. We have one office in Ames, Iowa. We're a bit smaller firm, about 14 or 15 people at any given time. We have architecture. We also have Alicia here, interior designer. And then we have in-house structural engineering as well. One of our principals, Eric Vermeer, is a licensed structural engineer. And we have two other staff that work with him in that. So Alicia, you want say some words?
Yeah, so just to help you see like a couple different avenues you could go with interior design, and there's way more than this that we can get into as we progress during this time. I've worked here for a little over a year and a half as an interior designer and a registered interior designer, I guess, and I'll explain that a little bit. And prior to here, I worked at Hy-Vee Corporate for like 13 and a half years doing store design. So I worked in the retail world working for the owner, which when you work for the person who, like, you're building for the owner, like you're the owner and you know them really well. And so it's a little different than the world I'm working in now, but I got to do a lot of, basically, if you think about it as interior architecture, because you're not doing like the structural aspect of things, but you're coordinating with that team and deciding like what the interior looks like from working with the architects from three-dimensional perspective as well. And then finishes go along with that. And even in my past life, I did a lot of signage and worked with our marketing team. So, which is some kind of things that Carrie had talked about as well. Working with different teams just to make sure the whole project's cohesive, as well as space planning. That's a big part of it as well. Like the floor plan and the layout of the space. And we have to also consider health, safety, and welfare and ADA, so the space is inclusive for all. But currently at HALA, which it's awesome. I live in Ames. I love it here in Ames. I'm like 7 blocks from the office. And before I was commuting, which is, a good option as well, but this is just nicer. I get to work on lots of different projects. And since I'm currently, there's just one interior designer, that's me. My hand touches a lot, like most of the projects, if they have an interior focus, like portion to it. So every day does look very different. And I really have to manage my time, which is always challenging to navigate and figure that out. We're always evolving and growing. And there's like little projects we do that are local, and then like bigger projects, schools, all different sorts of projects that we've got our hands in, and residential as well. So there's a lot of options in the field. We can talk more about that a little bit later. And one last thing, as far as like a registered interior designer. So I went to Iowa State, which I did forget to mention, for interior design. And you're able to, with having gone to a 4-year school, and I don't know if it has to be accredited or not, I don't think so. But you're able to take the NCIDQ exams to get a registration. Different states have different laws as to whether you can like register with the state or not. Here in Iowa, we currently can, but it does help to have done that testing to, make more money, to know more, and it's hard work, but it is worth it. But you could also not get the registration and still practice in this field. We don't get to stamp and sign drawings necessarily yet here in Iowa. And there's also 2-year degree options as well. I don't know as much about those, and there's probably it might be a little bit more challenging to get certain jobs, but it's still totally an option, and pay might just vary too, depending on how many years that you do go to school. So I'll leave it at that. I'm sure there's more later to discuss.
Well, and Alicia brings up a good point. I mean, it's not uncommon to have to take different tests like that and get different registrations or licenses, whether it's in this field or accounting or teaching or anything like that. And so I'm glad you brought that up. That's a good point. So as far as careers within the industry go, we kind of started to touch a little bit on different opportunities at different education or training levels. So can you talk a little bit about opportunities available for students potentially coming out with 2-year degrees versus 4-year degrees, or what different teams you have? It's not just architecture, there is the finance team and marketing and that sort of thing. And so how they could be in the field at different capacities, I guess.
I could start with that. So I had mentioned that we have a lot of diversity in the different roles in our office. While a majority of us have graduated from an architecture program, we rely so much on everyone else to help make our work complete and to fill that out. We have this, kind of this scope, and there's all these additive pieces you can add to that. So some examples of things you could do outside of having, so like an architecture degree right now is typically 5 years, or you do a 4+1 master's program, which some of the schools are changing to. And to get registered, you have to go to an accredited school. So there are some limitations on where if you choose that kind of path for architecture. But the things you can do, if that's not your track, there are certainly architectural design programs at the community colleges and even at some of the state universities that are more of a 2-year program. And those, what that leads to, like for us, we have several people that have graduated from those programs, and they are staff on teams. So they work similarly on, several teams in any given week, and they're doing a lot of the drawing work. So the architects on the team might be concepting and figuring out kind of what the project might look like and what it's going to entail. But that part of the team is really taking that concept and then really moving it forward into a drawing set that the contracting team can understand kind of that vision. They take the vision and make it a way for it to become reality, right? So by putting it into drawings, allowing it to be bid out, or, getting pricing and all of that, and letting the contractors build from that. So there's a lot of technical knowledge that needs to go into that, of understanding kind of our built environment and how things go together, and being able to put that down very, very clearly in a model digitally these days, or eventually some things come out on a piece of paper or in a PDF or something like that. So so definitely the drafting is one path. I mentioned that we have a graphics team here. We rely a lot on that. So we can build a wall, but what we do with that wall is a whole other thing. We can paint it, or we can design a graphic for it. There might be donor signage. So there's a lot of things in the graphic capacity that there are a lot of great programs, and that don't require a 4-year degree to be able to build that skill set. We certainly have business development opportunities that you could look at different tracks for education for that. We have our marketing team that also, while some of our staff have 4-year degrees, that isn't necessarily a necessity. It's about your skill set and what you're bringing to the team and what you're are going to be able to help us fill here. I think there are lot of parts and pieces in the design field. It's just being able to, and when you're working with, architecture and interior design firms and teams, it's about being able to put on a creative hat. It is different than other fields. We're not selling things. We're selling services and experiences and spaces. So when we're looking for those support people outside of, the architects and interior designers, we're really looking for people that can put on a really creative hat and think about things, how we might, spin a message or a story or, to a client differently and things like that. So it's that there's a lot of overlap there in a design way of thinking, but there's lots of pathways to be involved in that, I guess, from our perspective.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anything to add?
Yeah, I can add to that, kind of from the small firm perspective. So we have on staff Julie Dorr in our office is our office administrator. She has a banking degree, so she does all of our billing. But actually on the project side, she also assists with all of our kind of change order and kind of change logs, checking pay applications, making sure that contractors are billing directly to the owner. So that's an avenue, where if and she would tell you first that she doesn't have a creative bone in her body, which is untrue. She's creative with numbers, and she's fantastic with it. And I don't know what we would do without her. Having all of us creative types trying to do billing would not be
We're not very good with numbers like that, so we need those people to help us out for sure.
And we've had a marketing person in the past, but by and large, a lot of us are running portions of the firm. That's kind of our second job, as Carrie alluded to, as a principal at Envision. All of us have, other hats that we're wearing. I'm on the business development and marketing team. So while I'm an architect first, I do have to do work on our website, produce graphics to try to win jobs, things of that nature. Eric Vermeer, he's our structural engineer, but he also is kind of in charge of all things financial and kind of legal related to the firm. Sam Stagano, one of our principals, he's in charge of HR and human resources. Chad West, he's in charge of IT and making sure that all things are up and running. So, and what we're looking for students that are coming out of school, we're looking, at their first degree, architecture, structural engineering, interior design, but we're also looking, do they have a second degree or a minor in something, entrepreneurial studies, or do they have an MBA? Those we're looking pretty heavily at that when we're looking at resumes. What's that second hat that you could wear in our office? And that's the case with pretty much all small firms. Everybody has to wear all hats at that firm. So yeah, that's my 2 cents there.
I think it's important to note that, dependent on the size of firms, there's all kinds of sizes of design firms in Iowa. Some are sole proprietors that have one person, some have 2 to 3, 15, some, of our larger firms have, a couple hundred people here. And, depending on what size of firm you're at, you're going to wear a lot of different, have different roles and have different hats and be doing multiple things. And smaller firms, you're probably doing a lot more multiple things because you need that to support the overall, so yeah, and that's something to consider as you're kind of coming out of school as well, kind of what diversity you want, and maybe you want to focus on one thing or you want that challenge of taking on multiple things, and that can help lead you to maybe the size of firms that you're looking at. So I will echo what Art said earlier about the design community being rather small in Iowa. It's really wonderful when we get together kind of on an annual basis. We've all seen each other, through competition for projects or went to school together. I graduated with Sam Stagg and Chad West. So I spent a ton of studio time with them. So like we banter back and forth about competing on things and stuff. So it's really wonderful that way. And I see that a lot between a lot of firms and friends. You just make a lot of friends, and because we're kind of a specialized group in the state of Iowa and the services we provide. So, but it's a wonderful part of our profession, I think, here.
For adding that. I think that's important. You know, the relationship side of any profession is, you know, building relationships and networking. That's a huge part of working and in any industry. And so I'm glad that you mentioned that. All right. What are some of the things that you love about your job?
Do you guys want to go first this time?
Yeah, and I might just add a couple things to the last point.
Yeah, do.
For people to know when they're considering, you know, what they want to do. So I had mentioned there are 2-year programs. I don't know enough about them, but if you're interested, you can look into them. There might be one here in Iowa, but yeah, look into it and see what that's about, if that's more a route you would like to go down. Other things too, there's some interior designers who have degrees that do what I'm going to explain, but there's also people who are not interior designers that do this, and they do like product reps. So we have products that we need to specify in buildings, whether it be furniture or stuff that's like built into the building. I can't think of all the things at this time, but flooring, all those sorts of different things that there's reps that come meet with us to share their new products. Tile, that's another one. So sometimes those are interior designers, sometimes they're not. So there's sales positions like that available. And gosh, there's probably other things I can't think of at the moment as well. Yeah, but those are some other opportunities. And what do I love? I love a lot of things about this. I like feel excited to come to work every day. Because of like, I'm just thinking about different projects we're working on that we get to design and really make them such an amazing, powerful space that incorporates like art and design and the architecture and like working together to make this great space for users to experience life in, to bring more positivity into their lives, and as well as how the space functions. So I absolutely love thinking of the crazy, wild ideas, but I also, I enjoy like the process work to get to that as well, where you're sketching out ideas and then you take it into 3D rendering and then get it all polished up to share with the client. So there's a whole process, and selecting materials is really fun, like all the different textiles that go into things, or the tactile sort of things, as well as then taking the project and like making it a reality. And it can be really hard sometimes. Like, this isn't always easy. There's lots of things to know and learn, and it's hard sometimes. You'll get stuck, and then you have a whole team to help you figure out how to make something happen. So that's the great thing that, you know, I try to keep at the top of my mind. But getting to do the drawings as well sometimes is really fun to shift gears, to go from that creative space to then just producing the drawings. So that can be fun as well in its own like different sort of way. And I also like really love business development. So I've been the best I can during COVID. It's probably been more challenging for everyone than it has in the past, to develop business and relationships. And I love doing that throughout the community. So yeah, I'm so passionate about so many things, but I'll let somebody else.
I'll share. I've really come to enjoy the interaction I have with contractors. I come from an art background. I was a studio art major in undergrad and an architecture degree for my master's. But then I designed these buildings that need to get built by contractors, and they know way more about construction than I do. So I've really come to enjoy that time being on site and talking through details with them. Comments like, I think it could have been done a little better if we did it this way or that way. I'm just learning so much every day I'm on site by talking with contractors. So I like that aspect of learning something new every day. when the projects are under construction. So, Carrie?
Great.
Yeah, so I would just say, I would add to this, and maybe I can get to one of the questions in the chat box with this. For me, it's definitely the people. Just working and building relationships with clients, and then also just being around this kind of genius of these creative minds around me every day. It's so engaging and so rewarding, and it just keeps you kind of on fire all the time. As Alicia was saying, you're like excited to come to work and, figure out how are we going to figure this out together? How are we going to get to that next great solution? I would answer one of the questions about one of your favorite projects. Which one is one of your favorite projects and why? And I'll use an example of a project we did for Drake University. We were working on the basketball practice facility, the Shivers facility, that's attached to the Knapp Center. And they came to us and said, well, we need to open up a building. It was in October, and we need to have it open for fall of next year. Can you guys, like constructed and ready to use, and that's, well, you probably don't understand on the phone kind of design and construction schedules. That was kind of like crazy, but we're like, yeah, I think we can do it. But those kind of projects, it was hugely successful, and we had a great time in the office working together as a team, and we had a really fantastic relationship with the owner. And it was just because of the way we structured it, our teams, and the conversations we had. We built such strong relationships both internally and externally with the client on that project. And I would say that's like my favorite thing. I love projects like that where you get to really reach out, and we had to work together really closely to be able to deliver on their demanding schedule. And we did, and they were, really, really grateful, and they have a really great product in the end of it, and they're very proud of it, and, show it off and things like that. So it's really awesome. And we have like one of those few careers, I'm always thinking about how people are impacting other people in their career paths, and we did get to create like the spaces people are in. And unless you're in this mindset, you don't always think about it. You just walk into a room, but when you're in this mindset, you're like, somebody thought about every one of these details. And so I'm like staring at concrete all the time, and I'm looking at handrail details, and I'm pointing it out to my kids, and they think I'm nuts. But I'm like, somebody made this happen for you in every space you went in. And that's like what I love about what we do, is we get to think about that. And you get to, at night, when you're working on a project, like sometimes I'll like dream about being in the spaces we're designing, and then you can think about, we need to think about how this feels and stuff. But just that different way to connect with people that other professions don't get is something that I love the most about what we do. So.
Awesome. Okay, Alicia and Art, what about you? What are some of the favorite projects that you've done, and what made them your favorite? It's hard to pick one, I'm sure.
It's very hard.
Do you have an idea yet?
I've got mine in mind.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
A lot of Alicia's bigger projects are just now wrapping up. For her time here at Halo.
Yeah.
The one I have in mind is, it's not so much one project, but it's a series of projects that I've done for the Sadell School District down in Des Moines. It's a small school district, but I've been working on projects for them really straight from 2010 to now, so for about 10 years. It's gotten to the point now where, they invite me to their board meetings and their committee meetings, just like as if I was just a part of their team. And they're a very tight-knit school district. It feels more like a family than that. And they've kind of brought me into that. And so that client, they feel more like family than they do a client. And the projects that have been produced out of that, they renovated their stadium back in 2014, and I played football when I was in high school and college, and so that was a blast to work on. They renovated their weight room in a similar time frame, and that was really fun to work on. We renovated a couple of classrooms just a couple of years ago, and making spaces that are exciting, that have been sitting drab for decades, that was fun. So it's fun getting involved with a client that is, it's kind of like a family more than just a client. So, yeah, that's my favorite project.
Awesome. I'll make this really quick, and you can see I'm very passionate and it's hard to choose. Prior to here, and I'll talk about being at HALA as well, but I got to design the whole interior of some Hy-Vee stores, like the 4th and Court Avenue store downtown Des Moines, and a fast and fresh Hy-Vee like gas station on steroids, sort of thing where you can get all your meals there, and really working with the marketing team, the whole group of everyone, people in Hy-Vee, like the executives and things like that, to figure out like the whole space and make sure it all tied together. But each space had its own identity, like each department had its own identity. So that was a lot of fun and a lot of work. And then here at HALA, there's a school, it's not built yet, but that we've been working on in the past. And it was so fun. This media center and cafeteria area. I mean, I'm in love with the media center even more, but working with the whole entire team, the structural architects, and like bringing, like I have these dreams in my head and everybody else has these dreams in their mind, and then bringing it together. And it was complicated to figure out how we were going to make the structure and the skylights in the space. And it was an interesting shaped space. And it was so fun also like figuring out the colors and the materials and where we'll apply them and the different architectural elements in the space. And then creating the renderings and drawings for it. But that's been a highlight so far here. The first thing that came to mind anyway. There's probably
Awesome. Another student question was, what made you want to get into this field?
So I am one of those kids that I decided I wanted to be an architect when I was 9, and I kind of ran with it, and it's really worked out for me. That doesn't happen for everybody. I understand. I'm a realist at heart. So, but I got into it because I loved drawing as a kid. That's all I was doing was drawing, and I watched my parents renovating our house, and I'd be helping my dad pull nails and tear things apart and looking how things were going together and things like that. And then I would watch This Old House, which I don't know if you guys even know what that is, on IPTV on Saturdays. It was like my favorite show. So I didn't know any architects. I didn't come from a design family. Some people are brought up in that. I just wasn't. I just experienced it in this kind of roundabout way. So I got into it thinking I was going to get into only historic preservation. And that's like the opposite of what my career path has brought me to. But I love it. And I do have projects that have a historic nature to them and are historic preservation projects, but it's a small part of what I do. And I still love that and I appreciate it. But it was really just kind of starting to ask those questions about how things go together. And I loved math and science and drawing, and just I think I'm going to try this. And it just happened to work out. So I would love to hear kind of how Art and Alicia came into their professions, because mine's not always typical for students. So
Mine's a little bit similar to yours, Carrie. I wasn't 9, I was probably 12 or 13. But just a little background, my dad was a contractor for Butler Building Systems in the Southwest growing up. And Butler is kind of like the Southwest version of Morton Buildings or Lester Buildings. They're pre-engineered metal frame with metal sidewalls. Clients would come to them and say, we need a school building. And, Butler would say, okay, I can give you a 40 by 60 or a 70 by 60, and they're very economical. But they're not much to look at, right? And so that was kind of my growing up and my experience with construction and the built environment was these prefabricated, or not prefabricated, but pre-designed buildings, pre-engineered buildings. And, but then a teacher, my 8th grade teacher, shared a documentary on Frank Lloyd Wright in the classroom when I was in 8th grade. And that's when it clicked for me that you know, buildings can be so much more than just four walls, a roof, and a floor. And that space isn't just, you know, the boundaries of the wall that you put up. And I was hooked after that. Everything I did after that point, you know, going to college to be a studio art major was all the means to the end to become an architect. So after that.
And okay, so why did I want to get into this? Well, I grew up in a really small town where there's not much exposure to really cool, amazing things, which is interesting how you end up where you do. It's just, you know, sometimes you're just made to do something, and even though you don't experience it around you, and it's full beauty, like you become that. But I was really always into like art, which I'm an artist as well, but art, and I had teachers that really encouraged me in that, and things like speech and stuff too. So like asking for things, all the arts areas. But in high school, I had this shop class that was like grafting. There was only like two or three of us women in there, but now I hope it's got even more women in classes like that. But it was a lot of fun, and I like drafted to like super detailed, like perfection, and thought about being an architect, but thought, I'm just gonna be honest, like I wasn't smart enough, and I thought of like math, and it's probably like a lot of structural things like that. So going to college, I didn't think interior design was like, I just thought it was like decorating, which is fine, but that's not what I wanted to do. So I started out in graphic design, didn't get into the program, which I think that was like a total gift to not get in, because then during that time frame, I was like, realized what interior design really was, like the interior, more of the whole infrastructure of the building inside, as well as finishes. So then I switched to that. So I ended up going 5 years, even though that's a 4-year program, and got to do some art classes too at the same time, because that's part of it. But that's how I landed there. So a little bump in the road, but it was all good. And like I landed where I was supposed to be. I just had a wrong perception of interior design.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. And maybe I would have been smart enough to be an architect.
You would have.
But what I see now is maybe this is probably more my jam where I am. And I get to learn a lot about architecture from others are in that profession along the way. So
You're definitely smart enough.
Yes. I think people in these fields tend to be goal setters, makers, and problem solvers, and then you kind of backfill that with art and the math and all of that kind of stuff. But we're such problem solvers. I see everybody like, oh, I just want to dig in and figure this out. So,
yes.
Yeah,
that's true. We are problem solvers, and I love it.
Yeah.
I think this industry is a really unique balance of very, very technical aspects and very, very creative aspects. And so I think that makes it very unique. And clearly there's so much opportunity in it. And it sounds, I mean, it's really, truly driven by passion as well as talent and experience. And so I think that's really inspiring. And so with that, we've gone over time. We've had such a great conversation. And I think there are a couple questions we might not have gotten to. And so I will actually follow up and see if I can get some answers for the students and do some sort of piece for them, whether it's another video or some sort of just informative flyer. But I want to thank you all so much for the very engaging conversation. I know that I got a lot out of it. And I'm sure I know the students did too. We had lots of great questions. And so thank you all for your time. And
can I add one thing?
Absolutely.
Oh, sorry. And I'm sure Art and Alicia feel the same way, but in non-pandemic times, we love job shadowing. If you have further questions, depending on, or if you just want to call and video chat some more, Allie has our information. And if people have questions, we certainly would love to be a resource for the students and things. So
awesome.
moving ahead. All right.
Thank you. Yes, that's a
Yeah.
great point. I think that you've definitely inspired some future architects and designers, and I'm looking forward to making those connections and getting some job shadows, and hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yes, we
I
can do
think
them virtually for now. So
Yes, definitely. All right. Well, thank
All
you
right.
all so much, and have a great day.
you too. Thank you.
Thank you.